Leaders often find themselves in a situation where teams lack the desire or motivation to coordinate and communicate with other teams in the organization. The phenomenon of organizational silos. Silos are a consequence of our natural tendency to form smaller, more socially manageable groups, and the intergroup dynamics that follow from a lack of alignment between those groups. Unfortunately, silos create havoc for organizations. Lack of communication and knowledge sharing, petty politics, turf wars, working against one another rather than working together to achieve organizational objectives. As you move up in the organization, you will likely encounter this silo problem at some point, and it will be up to you to bridge those boundaries. We tend to see three types of silos in organizations. Organizational silos reflect structural boundaries between business units, departments, or functional areas, like HR, marketing, and sales. Spatial silos reflect physical boundaries between office locations, regional divisions, or multinational sites. Finally, social silos reflect socially driven divisions, things like gender, tenure, or job rank. The most commonly reported causes of silo behavior are divisions in business units that offer different products or services, and multinational organizations that are divided across countries. For most organizations, the lack of coordination and collaboration that occurs between organizational groups comes at the cost of both innovation and money, sometimes substantial amounts of it. However, in some cases, the consequences can be catastrophic. Silos are partly credited for the collapse of Sony's dominance in the portable music player market, and for BP's Deepwater Horizon disaster, and for the failure of the intelligence community in the lead-up to 9/11. So, if these sorts of structures have the potential to be so damaging, let's just do away with them, right? Not so fast. They exist for a good reason. Organizational structure is very efficient and critical for implementing organizational strategy. Imagine coordinating even a medium-sized organization with one huge pool of employees doing different roles, but without subgroups through which to organize their purpose and flow of communications. It would be chaos. The functional or structural bottlenecks are there to facilitate coordination. So instead, let's look at how you as a leader can bridge these organizational silos, overcoming the challenges of intergroup divisions so that you can reap the efficiency benefits of structural groupings while also promoting coordination between them. First is the social network perspective. If a lack of communication, and the lack of knowledge sharing and collaboration that comes with it, is responsible for siloed behavior, we can bridge those silos by encouraging communication. Kleinbaum and Tushman suggest that idea brokers in the organization can serve as communication hubs, connecting people and recognizing opportunities for collaboration and innovation. But to get there, they need the opportunity to build those social networks. Having shared spaces, conferences, and training encourages informal ties between employees from different divisions or functional areas. Furthermore, they suggest actively managing those informal networks by placing these idea brokers in strategically valuable positions, leveraging their networks to build more formal cross-functional links. A second approach focuses on trying to manage group-level interests so that they are not in opposition with collaborative goals. Group members are motivated to see their own groups succeed, and they will look out for the interests of their in-group, even if at the cost of the organization. Therefore, it is important to align group interests and goals with broader organizational interests and goals. First, make sure that there are clearly defined goals at the organizational level. Then make sure the links between a group's local goals and the more distal organizational level goals are explicit, discussed regularly, and embedded in how groups talk about their own objectives. Collaboration can also be framed as a goal in and of itself. Make it an organizational value. Done well, it will lead employees to think about collaboration as an opportunity to build partnerships, rather than a threat that requires group members to advocate for their own group's concerns. Make organizational level goals and collaborative goals part of the culture. Embed collaboration as a value. The importance of collaboration is often implicit. We know that sales and marketing need to get along. But if it is not salient, if employee groups are not reminded of the importance of the bigger picture, it can easily get overlooked. This also means reducing the perception that there is competition over resources. As we know from realistic group conflict theory, if organizational groups believe that there are fixed resource allocations, they will naturally fall into a competitive frame. You might also consider encouraging employees to approach cross-functional engagements as a chance for collaborative negotiation, for problem-solving any incongruities between the group goals, to create a win-win solution that benefits both groups and the organization. A bit of employee training in collaborative negotiation might help here. Now, if you're taking notes on how to bridge silos, chances are you already have them in your organization. So, it is also important to try to reverse some of the ill will that already exists between your organizational groups, to improve intergroup attitudes. Make the different groups like each other. To shape attitudes between organizational groups, you can start with positive contact. Research on intergroup contact theory shows that our distrust and negativity towards other groups can be overcome with positive contact events with members of the other group, and particularly by cross-group friendships. This is where shared social spaces, shared training, and company-wide events can add even more value. If employees have faces and positive experiences to associate with divisions that they may perceive as rivals, positive contact can begin to shift those negative attitudes. A major driver of siloed behavior is employee identification at the group level, but not the organizational level. Loyalty and interests then follow closely. Adopting a social identity approach suggests that silos can be bridged by developing and embedding an inclusive, superordinate organizational identity. So, leading employees to define themselves through their organizational membership. To achieve this requires shaping, reinforcing, and promoting overarching organizational values and goals. This often comes in the form of a common organizational vision, a guiding mission, or a values statement. These features form the basis of effective commitment and a common bond among employee groups. It provides them with a shared identity that encourages them to come together. This broader superordinate identity is particularly effective if individual groups can see the value of their subgroup function within that bigger picture, and the value of other functional areas when working toward that collective objective. Each organizational subgroup is indispensable to achieving that vision. Translating this into leadership, Alex Haslam and colleagues argue that development of an inclusive organizational identity requires 4 key leadership activities. Creating a shared sense of us, making people feel as if they are all part of the same group with shared values and ideals. Representing us, embodying those values and ideas, walking the talk. Advancing us, acting as a champion of the overarching group and looking after its interests. And embedding a sense of us, creating shared experiences and structures that bring organizational groups together rather than pull them apart. These activities not only help to shape an inclusive organizational identity, but also help to position the identity leader as the central figure of influence. In order to bridge silos, leaders also need to have strong interpersonal skills to navigate conflict and high emotional intelligence to read and respond to the emotions of different groups, while also using one's own emotions strategically. It is also useful for leaders to pay particular attention to procedural fairness, both in their own decision-making and the organizational systems and processes. That way, if a particular outcome or decision benefits one group over another, the group that missed out doesn't feel like the decision-maker was biased against them. If you're looking for a short-term solution to improve collaboration around specific issues or objectives, you can adopt a practice that General Electric refers to as a workout process, deep discussions across levels, geographies, and cross-functional areas to work out problems and make coordinated decisions for actioning. At GE, it was designed to break down the business-as-usual communication processes. CEO Jack Welch also upped the ante by making it clear to employees that they were not to impede the progress of a workout team. Putting ordinarily siloed group members in the same room to solve a problem gets them talking and on the same page. You can expect some conflict to arise with this particular approach, but if you set it up right, the intergroup discussion can be task-oriented. Notably, this practice echoes many of the theoretical points made earlier, like promoting opportunities for contact and collaboration, opening up networks, and giving groups the chance to solve problems and resolve competing interests together through collaborative negotiation. Let's take a look at another experienced leader's wisdom on bridging silos. Our own Vice Chancellor and President of the University of Queensland, Professor Peter Hoy, shares his views on silos in the university context. As he explains, think about which approach he might be using.
You need to define the vision for the organisation, and you need to define the values that define the organisation. If people buy into those, they will act in a somewhat concerted way. There are people who at times mistake their duty as if it's a duty to their individual unit as opposed to being a duty to the organisation. And when you see that, you have to remind them that that is not in their unit's best long-term interest. But you also have to have reward systems and language in place which tells people that working in unison is not only the right thing to do, but it's also the way that will advance your individual ambitions most rapidly.
In his reflection, Vice Chancellor Hoy talks about two key factors. In the first part of his response, he talks about the importance of defining the vision and values for the organization, and that a persuasive and meaningful vision helps to create buy-in at the organizational level. So he's talking about the overarching organizational identity and common purpose, and the extent to which employees buy into or identify with it. In the second part of his response, he talks about alignment and interests. If the reward structures are designed and understood correctly, pursuing organizational interests will not be seen as requiring employees to sacrifice individual or group interests. Therefore, his response nicely illustrates how a leader can bridge silos, first by defining a strong organizational identity, and second, by managing the interests of different organizational groups. Armed with this broad variety of approaches for silo busting, you can be more confident in your ability to bring organizational groups together.